What's going on, FPL managers? Welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Ted, and we are in the festive spirit today. Look at this stupid hat I'm wearing. I look like Wee Willie Winky,
Ted.
It's massive. I can't believe I've put this on for this stream, but you kind of emotionally blackmailed me into doing it.
Well, so, everything I do this week's got to be in the Christmas. I'm trying to force myself into the festive spirit. I had the old booster jab yesterday, and I feel rough, but you know, I'm here. I'm in my Brighton Christmas jumper, ready to talk football.
Look at that smile. When we both had our boosters at the weekend, so we're both feeling a bit shit. But you know, your Brighton Christmas jumper has made me feel a little bit more sick. So you know, thanks for that.
Yeah, it does have that effect. Oh, come on, you can't hate Brighton. We're such a passive team. We're not
Brighton are
Chelsea.
Great. Brighton are all effort and no. There's a funny saying for that, isn't there? I'm not going to say it.
You've already sworn, so you might as well carry on.
Have I?
Yeah.
Outrageous. Festive spirit.
Yeah. Festive spirit sworn in the first 5 seconds.
This bobbly thing's going to really annoy me. Anyway, green arrows for us both. I think yours was a little bit bigger than mine. I went up by 300 places, which is just absolutely nothing. But I think the game week was so bad on Saturday for people without Arsenal players. I was miserable. So I was down like half my rank as well. So happy to come back and actually get a green arrow. But we will start with your team, Az, and I think you had a pretty good team. Let's move into it. 3-5-2. The headline is Mr. Martinelli, who you bought in and rated even before he started doing anything. You know, it's nice when that happens. And Smith Rowe getting another one-shot return. Absolutely unbelievable. Talk us through it.
I know it was a funny game week, as everyone knows. Games getting cancelled left, right, and centre. People who bought in, Watkins and Aston Villa players burnt by that, sort of so close to the deadline. Luckily, I bought in Martinelli the week before. The reason I did that was because I was 0.1 off getting Foden, so I needed that downgrade, and this is where the luck element comes into FPL, because I basically needed to get 0.1 from somewhere. So I was looking at Ben Johnson to Brandon Williams. And I was like, that is really boring. Like, that is like the most boring transfer ever. And so I was just looking around the mid price, and I was like, hang on, Martinelli started 3 in a row now on the left. Aubameyang's got his all of his issues with Arteta. He's playing well. His XGI was like through the roof, and is when he plays, which is rare. And I just thought I'd have a bit of a Christmas punt.
Yeah, nice price, 5.2 at the time.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, it's the blend of, just kind of circumstance happening where, you have a position for him to come in, because I did with him Bomo not having a game, and him actually delivering and returning and doing good on promising underlying stats and performances. So, yeah, really really happy with that. It's rare, very rare for something like that to come, especially with like someone around 5 billion. As well. Normally they're just rubbish, but yeah, it's been really good.
Well, as soon as you back yourself with one of those picks and it just instantly pays off, that's just the joy that you bring, the joy that comes from FPL in its purest form. So fair play to you. I think even this video is entitled Martinelli in. I think it's really difficult for people that don't own him to bring him in now, because I think Norwich away is a great fixture, but then after that it gets a little bit tough. And it's really like, who do you stray away from in the template to get him? The likes of the popular picks like Rafinha, Bowen, the City mids. It's difficult to move on, but we will talk about that later on. But yeah, it's really difficult. That people are calling it chasing points in the chat, and I kind of agree with them to a certain extent. But he does look really good, and like Arsenal, I think, have played in a slightly different style with that Lacazette as a sort of a false 9 hybrid 10 without Smith Rowe. And Martinelli and Saka stats have really, really improved. So I'm kind of jealous of everyone owning Arsenal players at the moment. And who knew I had to be really worried about Arsenal players over Christmas?
I know. Well, I mean, the thing is as well, like now there are lots of players competing for those spots. But I think now Martinelli is the best one to get. I before this, I've got to be honest. I didn't think Martinelli would start this one against Leeds. I mean, he'd already started like 4 games in a row. He came off with cramp in the last game. People were asking me who I would get in my team for last week on free hits and stuff, and I was like, Saka's the safest choice. by far. We don't know if Smith Rowe is going to come straight back in. Saka's starting the games, looking, attacking, and all that. But if I'm picking one now, I'm going for Smith Rowe. And the best thing, not Smith Rowe, Martinelli. The best thing about him, I think, is the price just lets you have him as a fifth mid. And that's the key for me. That was the thing with Smith Rowe back when I got him at 5.3. You know, you see people with like Gilmore's and, okay, Ramsey's maybe not a bad pick, but like Skip and all these 4.5 options. Pay a little bit more to have someone like Martinelli with the explosive potential he's got. I think it's the way to go.
Absolutely. This is annoying for me because we know that there's been a lack of forward options in the game recently, like more than any other or less than any other season. So I used last week as an excuse to bolster my midfield, get 5 decent midfielders. And it seems like Martinelli is the answer to that cheap fifth midfielder if you want to bolster your forward line now. But who do you bolster it with? It's mainly Ronaldo if Man United's fixtures, because they're so good. But once they come back on Boxing Day, Man United's fixtures fantastic. And that's the kind of guy you have to spend your money for if you have a fifth midfielder, as in Martinelli. I know you have Ronaldo sitting on your bench and he'll be in your bus team for next week, but I find it's really, really difficult for me to even move to Martinelli because where am I going to spend that rest of that money if I don't have any forward spots?
Well, exactly. I mean, if you've got 7, 8, 9 million, you're going to be buying the likes of Foden. You know, Bernardo Silva, I still think is a good option, even though he's not starting. Jota. These are players who I'd rather have over Martinelli. But as soon as you add another premium in, so as soon as people start moving back to the likes of Son or De Bruyne is now becoming an option, Kane potentially after his goal, I mean, should definitely been sent off, but you know he could become a factor. Ronaldo as well, who I've kept faith with. Once you start looking for those premiums, you need to start, saving some cash somewhere. And Martinelli and these Arsenal players have come at a good time.
Yeah, 100%, especially when Salah is off to the African Cup of Nations after game week 21, I think it is. So we have the opportunity to look for a couple of new premium options. And if we've got some budget differentials, he might not be differential by then, in Martinelli, then obviously the more cash, the better. What I was going to ask you about Smith Rowe. What do you think of his chances of starting regularly? It certainly looks like he's lost his place. And are you going to move him on?
He's a bit of a problem, but he's a problem that keeps getting points. He's a weird one. I can't really remember someone quite like it, where he's not started the last 2, but still scored from like 1 shot in each game as well. He's too good to not play, but who does he oust? Because Odegaard's playing really well in the number 10 role. Do they move him back to, centre mid and put Smith Rowe back in the 10? I mean, that kind of unbalances them quite a lot. So I think, given that Arsenal have named an unchanged side, for 3 games in a row now, I think we kind of have to accept that Smith Rowe's out for a bit, which is harsh given the way he's played this season. The only other option, I guess, would be moving Martinelli up front and taking Lacazette's spot. And then you could play Saka on the left and Smith Rowe on the right and then Odegaard in the middle. So he's got options, Arteta. It's just, I've kind of got, with Smith Rowe and Martinelli, that's my 4th and 5th mid. So I'm going to have to bench one most weeks, really. And who do I do? Who do you bench out of those 2? Because they're both similarly good options when they play, and trying to kind of preempt when they're going to start is a bit of a problem. So I think Smith Rowe might have to go, but he's definitely got the Norwich game.
You've got 2 price points within the 5 million, so you need to almost find some money to upgrade one of them to that next million price bracket. Like Rafinha gets some good fixtures after game week 19, so that could be maybe a good option for you.
Or I downgrade one. I downgrade one to like a 4.5 and just keep the one that I like. I mean, the problem is they're both going to play minutes. So it's not like I can play one and bench the other, and then if one doesn't play, the other one's going to come on. Because if one doesn't play, we've got to think they're going to get 20, 30 minutes over the Christmas schedule. So it's, do I kind of just put all my eggs in one basket with one of them? Do I play this kind of new rotation game, trying to predict which one's going to start? It's a bit of a dilemma. At the moment, I think Martinelli is the one, and he's the one that I'll be playing if I have to pick out the 2.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We don't need another rotation game in this damn FPL game. It's very, very annoying.
I mean, look at Foden. You see the comments from Pep today saying that he's been a naughty boy. He's been on the naughty list. That's why he didn't play. Him and Jack.
How many days of sitting on the naughty step does he get for that? I wonder. Will he come back on Boxing Day?
Depends what he did. We don't know what he did. It could be really bad.
There's a lot of speculation there. I won't go into it, but Yes, hopefully Foden does return on Boxing Day because he seems like the best City asset at the moment. Obviously, other than Mr. Cancelo with his 18-point haul at the weekend. Huge. Some people even lucked into the vice captain when Foden didn't come on, which is absolutely fair play for picking vice captain on Cancelo. Some people even chose to captain him. Fair play to those. Unbelievable. 18 points, absolutely fantastic reward. The last thing I was going to ask you about your team was you brought Jimenez in last week. What was the rationale for that? Because he had Chelsea obviously the weekend, and now he's got Watford. But Wolves are a binary team at the moment, only conceding 1 or 0 goals, only scoring 1 or 0 goals. So what was your rationale?
Well, the rationale was, like you said earlier, there's no forwards that I wanted, and I had 9 players. So I didn't want to take a hit, but I needed to get another player, basically. So I could either have done Ronaldo to kind of anyone. You know, I could have got Kane in or Jesus or someone. I just thought, I'm going to want Ronaldo back. Like, it's pretty soon. The fixtures still turn really good. So it had to be Antonio that left. So it was obviously going to be Watkins. He was the obvious pick. And then when that game called off, I was just thinking, I just don't know who to get. And I looked at Jimenez and I thought, okay, Chelsea have been conceding, quite a few goals lately. They might end up with 2 unfit players in central midfield. If Jorginho and Kante both play, there's been some COVID problems. I thought he had a chance of getting something in that game. Actually, he should have scored quite early on. And then he had Watford. So I thought at least if he doesn't do anything in the Chelsea game, if that's a tight game like we thought it would, he comes into like the worst defence afterwards. And Antonio's got a good game at Southampton at home, but I'm going to give him as the Watford game and sort of go from there.
God, we need Antonio to get on the score sheet before we start considering him because it's been a really, really frustrating hold for a lot of managers. I moved him out this week as well, and it was breath of fresh air. Obviously, he
went to right back. Goes to right back. You can't be having that from your striker. That's
absolutely not
ridiculous.
Speaking of West Ham, let's move on to my team, and Jared Bowen is still in my side, and I guess that's the price point. That's the position that I could move to Martinelli if I wanted to move short term, but I don't think it's an optimal transfer. I probably will just look to keep Bowen. West Ham's fixtures are decent. He hasn't shown me anything to detract from his points potential in the future, so I think I'll just keep. I was on the FPL podcast a couple of weeks ago saying, oh yeah, we should downgrade our Chelsea defence, and since then they've both gone on to consistently return points. So
that's not how it goes, Ted. That's not how it goes. But I mean, stick your hat on something and it never goes the other way. That's my experience, anyway.
I think this is where the luck comes in this game, is that if you have some sort of external influence like the COVID postponements that direct you in a different way to make moves that are different to what you wanted to make initially, like move out a Chelsea defender, that's where the luck comes in. And I feel like I have been lucky about keeping Alonso because he was definitely on the chopping block for me. And since then, he's had a 60-minute clean sheet when Chelsea conceded last week, and then Alonso, three bonus points this weekend. So I've been fairly fortunate keeping him. And I think long-term Chelsea assets do need to go because they have Liverpool and City in game weeks. I think it's 21 and 22 or something like that. And then 2 blank game weeks in 24 and 25. So I think they need to be moving on to the likes of maybe Reguilon or maybe another City player. I don't really know yet. Or a move to 3 at the back. But yes, I mean, James seems to be the one that has all the underlying stats at the moment, so I'd be prioritising him over Alonso. Another blank, a blank for Salah captain, which is the first time in a very first time in a very long time. Yes, exactly. Game week 2 was the last time he blanked, and are we going to see a move away from this massively template captain Salah over the next few game weeks? Do you reckon?
Well, I tweeted earlier and just said, do we need to start thinking outside? I mean, we still do the captaincy videos, Joe and Tom, every week, and the views are getting less and less because everyone just keeps captaining Salah each week, and you can kind of understand it. But if you are brave enough to go for other players, then there is a reward. And okay, the Havertz captain, weeks ago was a complete disaster, but then you get something like the Havertz captain, the Cancelo captain this week, and it kind of turns it on its head. It just relies on Salah not scoring. That's the worst part of it because he's still so consistent. So if he'd been getting his 8s and 6s and all of that, Cancelo needs to get 18 to almost for it to be worth the gamble of doing it. That's such a monster haul, 18 points. And if a player is just consistently getting, between 8 and 10 points, and has the potential to get double digits, it's still really hard to argue against them.
100%. And he's got Leeds next, and I don't think anyone is going to be brave enough not to captain against Leeds.
It could be an absolute bloodbath, that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really poor defensively at the moment, Leeds. We'll come to defensive prowess later on in the stats, but spoiler alert, they're really bad. And I think Leeds, Salah is a perfectly viable captaincy option against Leeds. But then after that, he has another decent fixture. I can't remember what it is, but then Chelsea in game week 21, and then he's off to the African Cup of Nations. So would you be tempted to move off him before the Chelsea match, knowing that he's got a few game weeks that he's going to blank in?
Well, it's to do with the price, isn't it? I mean, he's 13.1 at the moment. Let me just see what I paid for him. I paid 12.5, obviously because I'm at the start of the season. So, I mean, that's 0.6. It's quite a lot to kind of take on the chin when you want it back. I mean, I consider him for 12.8, so actually it'd only really be 0.3 to bring him back. So yeah, maybe there is a case for it. It just depends what you could do with the money, because like the last few weeks, the premium options have been so poor. So I think, we might see people moving to Ronaldo. I don't think I want to go back to Kane. Maybe Son or maybe De Bruyne. They're the ones. If it's just a kind of a straight swap, I think there's some logic in it. But if you're going to spread the funds around your whole team and then find it hard to get him back in when that's over, then I'm not sure that's the way to go. But I'd love to see De Bruyne become an option again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels like a lot of us have got that City spot as well, because we've got Foden or Silva and then Cancelo. I mean, obviously some people have got Bernardo and Foden and Cancelo. But if you haven't, there seems to be a spot open for a kind of a 12 million price player. So yeah, it'd be great to see De Bruyne back on the agenda.
Yeah, he looked really good in not the recent match, but the most where they spanked Leeds 7-0, and his technique is just absolutely out of this world. Not many big chances created, but he doesn't necessarily need them if he's just technically very, very capable, which we know he is. Speaking of the third City spot, I have Raheem Sterling, who I bought in last week.
Ooh.
He was royally benched, and that was absolutely torturous to watch 7 goals fly past Leeds. Sterling rooted to the bench, but he duly compensated this week with 8 points for me, which I was very happy about.
90th minute.
Yeah, something like that. And like the tap-in of all tap-ins, it was a massively Sterling goal. But yes, very, very welcome, massive differential, and went some way into compensating my lack of Arsenal assets. A lot of people moved to Lacazette, Martinelli, Saka this week. So, and I didn't join that bandwagon, which proved very, very...
No Arsenal Sakas is interesting.
Yes, I was out on Saturday, and it seemed like the last 2 to 3 hours was mayhem in the community. Like everyone just thought, right, I'm going to get Arsenal players. And I just woke up, well, I didn't wake up, but I looked at my phone after the deadline had passed, and I was like, hang on a minute, why has everyone moved for Arsenal players? And it was
Lacazette was just the biggest bandwagon ever, because everyone had been set their sights on Watkins, and even people that had already transferred Watkins in were then making another hit to bring in Lacazette. And I probably would have joined them if I didn't already have the 3 Arsenal players in my side, because I don't particularly rate Lacazette as an option. And like you say, I think this new role doesn't really suit him either in terms of getting goals for the side. But who is there? There's so few options. I feel for the people that are going to be stuck with him, because after the Norwich game, he's not a good option. I'm sure.
I would draw comparisons to the new strategy, the new formation that they're playing with 3 up top. I would say that Lacazette is more in a Firmino role, and Martinelli and Saka are the Mane and Salahs. And I think they're the ones that are going to get the points. I think since they've played in that style for the last 2 games, Martinelli and Saka's stats have rocketed. So if you own them, I think you should be very happy. Definitely keep for Norwich. But I'm not sure I can really warrant bringing one in, because it's kind of detrimental to my squad structure, and I'm quite happy with the players that are sitting there. Maybe that's me being stubborn, and maybe this is something that I will really regret in the next few game weeks over Christmas, when Arsenal absolutely punish. But
Martinelli's a bit. If you've still got Mbomo, I think an Mbomo to Martinelli switch is definitely still on. I think Martinelli will comfortably outscore Mbomo going forward for what, 0.2 less or 0.1 less, something like that. And then he can just fit in your side as and when you kind of need him. But if I didn't have Mbommo and if I already had 5 strong mids like you've been talking about, would I switch one of those for him? Probably not.
Would you move Gallagher onto Martinelli, or do you think
No.
Gallagher's sufficiently good long-term hold?
I think Gallagher's fine. Gallagher's a good long-term hold. You know, he's been consistent. He's been doing it for weeks. You know, he goes on spells of blanks, but then makes up for it with big double-digit hauls. I don't think there's any reason to be panicking and switching Gallagher out. I think Gallagher's a great option at the price.
Nice one. Okay, well, let's end my team talk there. 57 points. It was 61 with a -4. And I mean, I only had 8 players playing, so the fact that I got a green arrow at all was actually a miracle. Very happy with that. Let's move on to the first talking point, which is the fixtures. We've got the fixture ticker up here, which is top 7 teams. Everton right at the top there with 6 green fixtures. And it's a pity there aren't too many obvious options from Everton to target. Calvert-Lewin does look like he's back on Boxing Day, but you'd have to have a really, really brave mind frame to even bring him in advance of that, because I want to see him play first, right, Az?
You've got to see him play first. We've got to know how effective he is. He's been out for ages. You know, there's still loads of games coming thick and fast. I think he's going to be managed back into them. I mean, they need him desperately, but I just don't think he's an option until after the new year, when he might be. But Everton are just such a, I mean, they're a team to, you know, target, you know, players playing them. I don't know. I mean, look at the Chelsea game against Everton. I mean, Chelsea didn't win that game, you know, 3-4, 5-0, and the team they had out as well, Everton, with all the problems they've got. You know, Dean's you know, under the magnifying glass. Like, obviously his attitude isn't particularly impressing Benitez. Got Richarlison stropping and moping around like he loves to do. They just got huge problems. Damari Gray is the one. I like Damari Gray. I think he could come back into our thinking, but he missed out, didn't he? I think in the last game, and we don't really know why.
Oh, interesting. I also add a name to the list, Indikure. He has proven his worth in at the start of the season and last season. Well, that might be a bandwagon forming at some point if Arsenal do get some form in the next couple of weeks. But I think Calvert-Lewin is probably the only one that I would consider if he starts getting back in the team from injury. But it's been such a lengthy absence that I would just be a little bit prudent. I would not gamble. But having a price point
was when he got injured.
Yeah, game week 3. That's a very, very long time ago. But yeah. I mean, having a price point in your team like Watkins, Antonio, whatever, if you want to make an easy move to Calvert-Lewin when he does get some form, when he starts consistently, then that's not the worst idea in the world for sure. So we've got Man United and West Ham up next. Very, very decent fixtures. So happy to hold Bowen. I think if you're holding Antonio, you are an incredibly patient person, but I kind of don't blame you to a certain extent, but it's like waiting for this bus to come along. It's just taking ages, isn't it? And watching him in that game when he played right back, he just doesn't look like he wants to score. He doesn't want to get in the right positions. He doesn't really shoot. It's just nightmare.
I don't understand it. I don't understand what's happened to him. I mean, you know, you look at sort of around game week 6 or something. He was, you know, they're launching balls over the top. He was chesting it down, spinning, smashing it into the net, wheeling around, confident, kissing the cardboard cut of himself. It was like, you know, he was like a man just so full of confidence and form, and the team was almost built, you know, to play to his strengths. And since game week 6, he's got 1 goal in 11 games and 1 assist, I think. And that assist was, you know, a non-assist because he just gave it to Masuaku, who, you know, spanked it into the top corner somehow. So it's a massive, massive drop off. He's been playing well, I've thought. Like his role in the team is good. He goes out to the left. He's making space. He's had a few one-on-ones that he's kind of missed. He's still a threat, still powerful, still causing defenders problems. But it's not what you want as an FPL manager. You need points. So
100%.
I can completely see why people are sticking with him. The fixtures are good. There are so few other options to go for. You know, it's Southampton next, then Watford. They've got Leeds on the horizon as well. You've got to hope he's going to get some points. But I think Bowen is leagues ahead in terms of if I'm tapping into West Ham, it's got to be Bowen out of the two of them to prioritise.
Yeah, you've got to think that if Antonio still continues to run the channels, even against weaker opposition, it just makes space for Bowen to take up a central position and to be more involved in the goals.
Sorry, Ted. Just some breaking news that the Premier League is going to fulfil all festive matches, so there will not be any postponements over Christmas.
Woohoo! Nice one. Good news. I need some entertainment over Christmas. 100%.
Boxing Day without football would be absolutely awful at my family house. I tell you, I don't know what we'd talk about all day. It would just be a nightmare. But yeah, that's my favourite day of the year. So I'm glad they're going ahead. Talking
about Game Week 20, which was the set of fixtures that they were looking to forego, I think, after Boxing Day. Game Week 20 is the game week where the same teams play the same opposition in Game Week 24. So if you look on the fixture ticker, all of the fixtures are exactly the same.
Are they?
So yes,
didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. I only found out by doing this graphic, so that was kind of weird. But I think they must have some sort of algorithm which they use to produce these fixtures.
You're right.
All the permutations.
So wise, Ted.
So wise, or just lucky. Either way. So yeah, Arsenal play Wolves twice in 6 game weeks, and I think Wolves is a really difficult fixture for them, and it's a difficult fixture for most people. So I should say most teams, not most people. So yeah, it kind of puts me off bringing in an Arsenal player. They've got City and Spurs intertwined with Norwich in the next game week and Burnley in game week 23. So I think 4 tough fixtures for Arsenal compared to 2 easy ones. I'm just kind of put off a little bit, but I think owners should be very happy about trying their luck against those teams. I just don't think it's enough for me to transfer them in. We've got Leeds there with Liverpool in game week 19, but thereafter some excellent fixtures for Rafinha to possibly come back into our teams, or for those that have held him. Yeah, I think you've got a really good player there. There's a fact that he keeps penalties. Why not? Why take him off it when he's been so prolific? So confident. I think Bamford just got them because Click had missed one, right? And he was like, he scored one and just kept them until he missed.
Yep.
So I think Rafinha's got a great shout at being on penalties, and he's good value already. But if he's on penalties, he's a priority for me to get back in.
I think, and you know, the fact that Bielsa hasn't adapted the style, I think in a lot of ways is, I watched them play and I think, what are you doing? Like you can't go toe to toe with teams like Arsenal in the form they're in, with the players you've got, like with Tyler Roberts, with Eiling at centre back, with basically no midfield of any note. Like you know, you've got a 15-year-old on the bench. Like the fact that you haven't adjusted this, I think I can't work out whether it's Bielsa, right? That's what I'm not surprised that he does it. He's had success with the way he plays at different clubs, but there does seem to be a naivety to it. I think that there's no adjustment. But I can appreciate there's different sides to it. But I just look at them in any game and I think you could score. Rafinha can get you something here. They can win a penalty. They're going to be near the penalty area. They're going to stuff. But my God, they're going to concede some goals if they carry on playing the way they are. There is no team that won't score against them.
I completely agree with you. I think there's an element of stubbornness there from Bielsa. He's just so set in his ways. And obviously it's worked for him in the past. So why change it? It's like, I'm narrow-minded. I'm just going to do exactly what I think. No deviation from it. And right now, because he's lost a key number of key players, I think it's really hurting him. And I think he needs to be a little bit flexible. There's talk about him, being sacked, and I think that's a bit soon.
I mean, that's ridiculous. And Leeds fans don't want him sacked. I'm sure they don't. He's like a god to them for what he's done, getting them back into the Premier League after all this time and things. But if he doesn't adapt and the squad carries on the way it is, they will get relegated. I've absolutely no doubt about that, because they won't. They will concede too many goals. There has to be some adaptation while the injury crisis is going on, to try and stop goals going in. Because they can't defend. I mean, you look at them from corners, they're all over the place. They're not marking players. They're not getting back in time. The effort levels have dropped last year. They're getting outrun by the opposition as well. All the things that have made them so good, last season have declined massively this year. And you can't just persist with it without changing anything, in my mind.
I think Gary Neville summed it up nicely on the commentary, saying it was like under nines just running for the same ball, just trying to block it. It just... really, really bad. And there is an argument to captain Jota ahead of Salah because of the nature and the way that they concede. It's just an absolutely porous defence in the central areas. And Jota's been supremely clinical recently. So if you wanted a differential captain, Jota,
would you
why
do
not?
it? Would you go for Jota over Salah?
I'm
being brave.
I think you'd need to be really brave. I think I'm too risk averse to be able to contemplate that, but I think there's a lot of people out there that would try and risk it.
It's so difficult with the penalties, as a factor. The penalties for Salah is huge.
Yeah.
Even if both had, both got similar stats, the penalties just elevate him up a notch. Jota would have to have some like far superior stats, I think, for me to consider it.
I mean, his XGI is out of this world, Jota, compared to Salah. So yeah, but I completely agree with you. I think the penalties does sway it, and I think
clinical. Would you describe Jota as clinical? It seems.
I think he is clinical.
Klopp did, and I was surprised because he still misses a lot.
Well, we've got a number of stats coming up that will be able to show that, but I think he is fairly clinical just because he gets these shot positions about 6 yards out from goal, and it's very difficult to miss those. So it's. I think he's just positionally very astute, and
he is. I mean, he drew his header like last night for Spurs. I mean, I saw it for the first time and I thought he's unmarked, but he's just given a free header, but when you actually look at it, he is intelligent. His awareness of where the defenders are, the fact he glides into space. The best players manage to do that, manage to find space when there isn't a lot in like a crowded penalty area. And then, for a short guy, the leap he's got on him and the power he can generate from his head is really impressive. He is a classy little player, and I think he is starting to lose that kind of frustrating FPL tag somewhat because he is being a bit more consistent. We're getting goals, and we've seen a few kind of horror misses from him. When there was no goalkeeper in the net and he had pretty much the whole goal to end that, and he smacked it straight into a defender. We're always going to get a bit of that from him, but yeah, he is becoming a real asset for us. And it's still 7.5, 7.6.
Absolute gift.
Just how cheap he is. He is a gift, yeah.
So yeah, the last one I wanted to talk about on this fixture ticker was Spurs, and we're going to look at Kane and Son and their potential for the coming weeks. But 3 decent fixtures. I think Palace is probably the most difficult one out of those 3, which is next, and then Southampton and Watford, followed by Arsenal and Chelsea, which are some tougher ones. But I think in the next 3. No reason to move to Son or Kane if you wanted to. They looked absolutely fantastic against Liverpool's high line. And Conte seems to be... I think they had a nice rest, didn't they? I mean, they had a couple of weeks rest, and they've only played 3 fixtures in the last 6 game weeks. So they look fresh. I thought Dele Alli did a really decent job defensively speaking. It looks like they're playing with 8 defenders at the moment, and then Son and Kane. But I couldn't believe the quality of chances they missed.
I know. It's quite old school tactics. Just get the ball up top and let Son and Kane do all the work. And Liverpool just couldn't deal with it. Just over and over and over again. And I think not having Van Dijk there, Alisson had a good game, but was coming out so often to try and, get the ball and missing it a bit and flapping at a few things and stuff. He was kind of like the great and the bad in that match. Made some fantastic saves, but was kind of responsible for at least one of the goals, definitely. It was interesting. I wonder. I mean, that's Liverpool though. I think that is going to suit a Conte team who love to counter on teams like Liverpool who push high and bring their wingers up. When Spurs start playing some more stubborn defenses, I mean, like Palace, for example. Chelsea are coming up. Southampton haven't been giving away too many chances lately. They're not going to be able to do that effectively. And I'm still don't know if they're worth it at the moment. The defense, Reguilon, I like. Do I want to pay 12 million for Kane? Definitely not. Son is an option.
Son is definitely in my thoughts, actually. I might move Sterling to Son this week. I'm not 100% sure whether I want to play this Pep Roulette anymore, but it's just so difficult. It seems like he's got 2 sets of players that he plays one week and then the other set the next week, and it's just really difficult to get on.
I'm relieved in a way that as I've got Foden, I'm relieved in a way that there was like a real reason for it. Because I still think Foden is first choice in that kind of number 9, false 9 role. And the fact he's come out and said, I wasn't impressed with his behaviour, that's why he didn't play. Well, that tells me he was going to play. if he hadn't done whatever the hell he did that no one really knows. So I think going forward, he's still the one that I like the best. And if you're looking at City, he's got the best XGI. Whenever I watch him play, he's on the corners. He looks the most involved in the attacks, all of that. I'm still happy to have him. But yeah, it's going for like another one, like Gundogan or, Jesus or De Bruyne. I still think one is I'm happy with one.
It's really difficult. You're just coming at it from a different angle. You know the points are there. You just don't know which player is going to get them. Whereas we like normally to pick players you know are going to start, but you may not get the points. So it's a really counterintuitive argument, and I really don't know. I think Foden and Cancelo seem to be the safest pair, and that's probably what I'll go with. So yeah, let's move on and talk about some stats. And we've got the defence chart, I should say, up here. Small chances conceded across the bottom. So the more difficult chances a team is conceding, the further to the right they are, and the more easy opportunities they are conceding, which is the really worrying one, the further they are to the top. And you can see Leeds there, top right, really, really bad, along with Newcastle and Watford, which bodes well for your Jimenez pick. And obviously we've got the Liverpool players against Leeds this weekend. Everton, Southampton and Leicester kind of surprised me. But Leicester, I kind of have been continually and consistently bad defensively this season. I think Soyuncu's having a terrible season. Evans, I think they had a recent setback. I think he might have been injured. But really, really, really poor regardless. And Everton there, lots and lots of big chances conceded. So I think Man City are playing Leicester this weekend, aren't they? And who are playing Everton? I'm trying to remember.
Everton have got
Newcastle, I think.
Is it?
No,
Burnley.
No. Burnley. That's annoying because no one's going to have anything from Burnley. Anyone from Burnley.
Should have got Chris Wood.
Unbelievable, yeah. Cornet used to be the one from Burnley, but he's lost a little bit of rhythm. I think he's been injured a little bit as well, which is a little bit annoying. Another thing to pick out of here is Norwich seem to be very good defensively now, and Arsenal are playing Norwich next, so it may not be a steamroll that we think, but I mean, just hypothetically, it's a good fixture on paper. It may not be one to just completely focus on the defensive appeal, because we know that Norwich can capitulate sometimes. And maybe it's more out of hope than expectation from my point of view. Please, please don't score.
I think this chart's really nice because I think it confirms the fact that Newcastle, Leeds, and Watford are the teams that we want to be targeting to, our players and captains and everything like that. I mean, obviously it's hard to take it off Salah, but I just see Newcastle, Watford, and Leeds as they just cannot defend. They just can't. They're not going to keep any clean sheets in any games they playing the way they are, because they just concede too many chances. And then you look at Norwich, and I see them under Dean Smith. I think, well, you have improved. You have got a system that's looking to focus on your defence, unlike Newcastle, Leeds, and Watford, where the managers are just completely gung ho. I've heard Eddie Howe say that he wants to get them playing attacking football. We know what Bielsa's like. We know Ranieri said that they've got these good forwards that he wants to kind of get the most from, whereas Norwich are going to be a defensive first team. So I don't see them in the same whipping boy bracket as those three. What I am surprised with here is Southampton being so high, because I said earlier that they don't tend to concede that many goals, but the indication is they could have another thumping coming to them pretty soon.
It could be a manifestation of difficult fixtures recently. They've played Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Brighton, Leicester, Liverpool in the last 5. So all fairly attacking teams. Brighton create a lot of chances. They're not so good on the clinicalness. But, I mean, Palace are excellent. And I think, obviously, Leicester and Liverpool, Arsenal speak for themselves. So I think it might be skewing it a little bit. I think Southampton are a pretty solid team. But nevertheless, I think we should be worried about Livramento's chances going forwards. It certainly doesn't look like they're as strong as they were at the start of the season. So yes, Tottenham and Crystal Palace are also very, very good for big chances conceded, which is normally pretty good for goalkeeping returns if you're bad for small chances conceded. And Guaita should be the best goalkeeper in this game, but I think Palace just concede too many one goal every match. That's terrible English, but he's just very frustrating for owners, and I think owners have, really, really picked out a good one there. And I think Ramsdale owners, Arsenal there, obviously they're a really good defence, but if they're not conceding loads and loads of chances, then Ramsdale obviously doesn't get many, many opportunities to make saves. So we've got to worry about that. But if you've bought him at 4.5, Ramsdale's just an absolute steal, and there's no reason to move off him. We've got the same group of three, Liverpool, Chelsea and City, as some of the best defences. Liverpool and Chelsea have been a little bit poor recently for big chances conceded, and I think that was evidenced by Liverpool's trip to White Hart Lane. It was at White Hart Lane, wasn't it? It wasn't at Anfield. Yeah. Which they were pretty defensively poor.
Well, not White Hart Lane anymore, is it?
Is it not White Hart Lane? Unbelievable. Okay.
What's the new fancy name of Spurs Stadium?
I have no idea. Shows how much I know. Goodness me. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things here. West Ham have really capitulated too. And Wolves, their stats are very middling, but I would say Wolves are one of the best defences in terms of clean sheets. They've been fantastic. So it just shows that this isn't the be-all and end-all. This can be a little bit misleading, but certainly it does display the type of chances that these teams are conceding. And Leeds, Captain Salah this week, 100%. Let's move on and talk about attack. So the teams and their attacking prowess. We've got Man City up there, top right. That doesn't surprise me. And Liverpool and Arsenal close by. That's really, really unusual. Normally, we don't see Arsenal up there. Normally, they're middle of the pack. And that has really shone from the change in structure with Martinelli and Saka coming in. So pretty encouraging for your boys, Az.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Southampton game was kind of when I started taking note of, because he kind of, Martinelli was in, the new system looked like it's working. Aubameyang was taken out of the kind of firing line. And, Southampton went down, with nothing but a whimper, really. It was a really kind of comprehensive performance from Arsenal. But then the thing you wonder from Arsenal is, can they build on this? Because, you see it before, they put in a good performance and then the next one's not so good. And then, another bad performance. And, they've won the last three now after conceding that late goal to Everton. And, West Ham at home is such a important game for all the Arsenal fans. And, West Ham are fourth in the table. I think a lot of people kind of have written them off in that match. And, to get a 2-0 win in that game says a lot about kind of what Arteta's building. So they're not a team I thought would be in this position at this point. At the start of the season, lose to Brentford, lose to Chelsea, lose to City. Really, really bad performances. Problems kind of all over the pitch. I thought Xhaka isn't good enough to be in this side. Aubameyang hasn't scored a goal for like 2 years since he signed the contract. And they're relying on these kind of, Saka was the best player on the pitch by a million miles, and I wasn't sure if Smith Rowe was ready and all this kind of stuff. But the way he's gelled everything together, I think is really impressive. So yeah, massive credit to Arteta, really.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, we have to sit up and take note. The other team that we really do have to do the same is Tottenham, and I think this shows the type of style of attacking play that Tottenham are playing, and that is very much counter-attacking football. Not very good on peppering the goal with lots and lots of shots from the edge of the box while their opponents sit back. They are just focusing on the big chances. They want the through balls from a high line. And as long as they're getting the same number of big chances in Liverpool and City, I think we really need to take note. And Son and Kane are definitely on the cards for their decent run of fixtures and potential multiple double game weeks. So it's really encouraging to see for someone who, like me, who wants to bring in Son for maybe Sterling, which is an easy move for me because Sterling's, I think, 0.3 more expensive than Son. So it's just an easy free transfer. I think that's probably going to be my move this week. And their conversion is pretty good as well, which is kind of weird because Kane's conversion has been dire, apart from at the weekend. Even at the weekend, it was pretty poor.
I know. He still doesn't look. He was a lot better against Liverpool. The fact they were putting the long balls over to him and he was running and kind of running the channels and everything like that. Like the system definitely suited him more. He looked more like a centre forward than he has done before. But I do think in games against, low block teams, we're going to see him back to how he is, ambling around centre mid role. Don't like him. Don't like him as an option at the moment.
His confidence is just, I don't know, it's just knocked. And Son just looks like really focused.
Yeah, he does.
So I think that would probably be my option. We had a super chat, and the answer to that is Saka, in my opinion. Saka or Emile Smith-Rowe out for Rafinha. I think Smith-Rowe seems to have lost his place, so Saka seems to be the obvious one out of those two. But back to the stats. Wolves there.
What it's worth.
Yeah. I think that would be the consensus. Wolves there, and this is consistent in the last. They're really, really bad for big chances and small chances. Does that worry you from a Jimenez point of view?
Yeah, massively. I mean, if it was only because they've got this Watford game next, I considered him just because of the lack of our options. I mean, Jimenez as well. You know, I wasn't watching the match, but I was listening to it as it was going on. And whenever Wolves get an attack, it's almost like Jimenez isn't involved. So Podence is attacking, or Marçal down the left wing back, or this all the players that you just want to hear it be like, oh, and Jimenez has got into the area, or Jimenez has had a header, and all this kind of stuff, which is what we've got used to him in the past for doing. He does seem to be in this kind of creator role, and when he's the chief creator for a team that isn't really creating much, it kind of does make him a much less attractive option. So he's got a shelf life in my team for sure. I can't see myself persisting with him for weeks and weeks, but we'll see how he does against Watford.
Yeah, you basically need him to be uber clinical, which he can be, to be fair to him. He is a quality player, and if he gets one chance, maybe he can score it. But in terms of the team's attacking prowess, it seems like Wolves are really struggling, but maybe that's just for the nature that they play such solid football. The emphasis has been at the back. And maybe Adama Traore finally gets an attacking return as an assist for you at some point. He's such a frustrating player to watch, Adama Traore. Absolute joy. But
I don't know what they do with him. I don't know whether you keep him or whether you sell him. Because I mean, he was being rated at like 50, 60, 70 million, like 2 seasons ago when he had such a good season, and he hasn't done anything for like 2 years or like a year and a half. So it's like, do you just cash in on him and just try and get like 30 million for him, 35, make him someone else's problem, or do you try and get the talent, out there like Nuno managed to do? He's a real enigma, that guy.
Real enigma, 100%. I think he will have a couple of good seasons. I think he just needs to improve on his finishing, and maybe they'll work specifically on it with him. But yeah, very strange. But yes, anything else to talk about? Brighton here, obviously struggling with their clinical stuff. The numbers inside the bubble, 0.3, big chances scored, small chances scored, compared to the other teams around them with similar big chances and small chances, significantly smaller. That just shows that they're struggling with their clinicalness, which isn't a surprise because they're normally really, really busy, such a busy team, loads of shots, just...
Story of our lives, Ted. Nothing changes. It's like Groundhog Day being a Brighton fan. It's obvious that we need a striker, a focal point. We can't keep relying on Mopé missing open goals and then scoring overhead kicks. We need a more consistent striker in the side. And until we get that, this is going to carry on.
Just play Locadia more. That's what you need.
Oh, yeah, he's the answer. Oh, my God.
I was trying to bait you there, but oh well.
He's bad. He's real bad.
Yeah, I mean, Watford and Crystal Palace there alongside them, that's probably encouraging for Dennis and King owners and the likes of Gallagher. I think those teams have really overperformed over what we have expected from them this season in terms of attacking output. They're very lively. I mean, I think Josh King worries me at the moment just because of the nature of his positions that he's taken up recently. But Dennis is in red hot form. It's just this lack of rhythm over the last few game weeks, obviously with the postponements. I wonder whether all the teams reset and we go again and everything changes. Like we've seen Spurs come back and put in a fantastic performance. I wonder whether the performances of certain other teams change dramatically in the next few game weeks. What do you think about that?
I mean, it could do because it gives new managers, like Dean Smith. I mean, Ranieri's not been there that long. Gerrard, maybe. It gives teams a chance to actually get their tactics instilled. And, at such a busy time, I think there's going to be a lot of clubs that are really grateful for the fact that not grateful for the fact they've had COVID cases. That sounds a bit bleak, but just the fact that they've had matches postponed and can get players on the training, and even if players are isolating and stuff, they can still use this time to talk to them and phone them up and get them kind of on board with all the things they're trying to build at the club. So I think Watford are going to be really interesting because they can't defend. I can't see Ranieri's not going to suddenly turn them into like a really good defensive side. But what he will be able to work out is how to get the ball up to Josh King and Dennis and make the most out of that, exciting forward line that they've got. They've got other players there, like Pedro Neto is a good player. They've got really good options that can get them goals. So if you're right, I'd expect to see Watford start scoring more. And I think Dennis is now the main one. I mean, I was sure it was going to be Josh King when I bought him in, but I think if I was buying one now, I'd go for Dennis.
Do we know if he is going to the African Cup of Nations? Did he get picked or not? He must have done.
I think he was in the provisional squad, and then I think they got a new manager.
Yeah.
And I don't have the final call-ups haven't been done yet, have they?
Definitely one to keep an eye on though, if you're looking to bring in Dennis, because if obviously Dennis goes off, then Josh King becomes really good. So there's a lot of small ifs and buts, which actually could make a massive difference in that Watford team. And obviously the prospect of a triple game week at some point for Watford. I think there was a possibility of that. Otherwise, 2 smaller double game weeks. And so that's another thing to consider, really. If you're going to do your homework, make sure you keep some players who've actually blanked so that their prospect of double game weeks is decent. So definitely one to consider. But let's move on and talk about players' options themselves. I've got another chart up here, which is the top 30 statistical players here. So they're small attempts. The attempts are chances plus shots. Basically anything that contributes towards a goal or an assist, and that's split by the difficult ones, which are the small attempts, and the easy one, which are the big attempts. And we've got the Spurs boys at the top here, rivaling Jota and Salah, which I guess doesn't surprise me, seeing that the Spurs team attack had also had a massive boost. But Kane is top for big attempts per appearance in the last 6, which is crazy. But I guess that does obviously make him a massive option. But his clinicalness has been fairly poor recently, and I guess
fairly poor. I think that's being kind.
Yeah, I mean, if maybe Son 2 million cheaper, who's got similar stats to him, but crucially he's converting much more. 0.7 big returns per appearance, 0.7 small returns per appearance. That's significantly better than Kane's. I think it's an easy decision, maybe go Son over Kane. We've got Phil Foden there on the top right-hand side. Not quite top right, but this multitude of City options on this graph, there's 8 or 9 of them. This merry-go-round of points, they're all good. But Foden seems to be the best, judging by the last 6 game weeks statistically. What do you make of Foden compared to his compatriots? We've got De Bruyne there, similar for small attempts, but not many big returns, and I think that's probably makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're picking one, it's Foden by a country mile for me. I mean, I could have got Silva in for free, for example, and I chose to take the hit to get Foden in, and I think we've seen with De Bruyne coming in that Silva's plays deeper in the side as well, which is a bit of a problem for owners. I think Silva's a hold. If you got him at 7 million or around 7 million, I think he should still tick over. He'll get you the odd assist and he'll justify that price. But once you start getting into the same price bracket as Foden, 7.8, 7.9, Foden's lead ahead to me. He's the central. He plays further up the pitch. He's a central point to every part of the attack. He's such a attacking minded player. It's an easy choice to pick him.
He's versatile enough, and you're right. I think he is first choice. The reason why I didn't bring him in initially was because I didn't like the look of him on the left. It seemed like he had more assist potential, but against weaker opposition, I think he's just going to drift in, regardless, and have plenty of shots. So
they all just kind of rotate. Yeah. Anyway, if he's got Grealish, Bernardo Silva, Foden, Gundogan, they all just take it in turns to make runs into the box and drop back and move over to the left. It's such a fluid, incredibly fluid system they've got there. So, on that basis, there isn't much separating them. But when it comes to actually who is able to convert, I think Foden is the one he's the most intelligent player, I think, for making those runs and getting into the positions to score.
He's also the youngest, and we don't put enough bearing on youth and fitness, because he maybe is more likely to play more games just from that perspective. Maybe that's a little bit tenuous, but just to add to his credentials for owning him. But let's talk to the main talking point, which is Martinelli and Saka here, right in the middle. And for their prices, I think they're providing excellent value. Let's look at Martinelli first. He's got 0 0.8 big returns per appearance, 0.2 small returns. So he's clearly having the bigger opportunities and converting them nicely. Let's bring up his timeline here. We've got, this is from game week 9 to game week 18. We can see that he's only played really the last 3 games in a row and then 90 minutes against Man United in game week 14. But he's returned in every single of the last 5 games that he's played. So consistent. And the stats at the bottom there, we're looking at XG and XA. That rolling average has really improved in the last 2 games, almost to an elite level. So it's really, really encouraging for owners and really scary for me, who's not planning to bring him in. Absolutely fantastic. And you think he keeps his place in that side?
I love that people are scared about not bringing him in. It's kind of like, it really is the best result I could have hoped for having got him. I just think what I like about him is that he just offers something to Arsenal that they just don't have, with Aubameyang being out the side, which is just this like direct running ability. Like, his goals against Leeds are just him getting the ball and just driving forward. And we see it from Saka at times, but also Saka can fill in at right back, left back, central midfield, everywhere. He's such a versatile, clever player that he just plays kind of all over the pitch. Whereas Martinelli just wants to get the ball and just run at defenders. And that to me is what makes him, the best, the kind of the standout pick at the moment. I think with Smith Rowe and Odegaard, you've got the kind of the creative hubs, but I think we're going to see, I would imagine we're going to start to see a bit of rotation between those. So I think at the moment it's Odegaard's place to lose, but it really is that kind of direct player that I like to see in the side. And like you mentioned, Lacazette drops deep. I don't think he is anywhere near as good an option as Martinelli for 3 million, more. So yeah, if I'm buying one now, I think it's definitely between Saka and Martinelli. I think Saka's got the benefit of he's going to play 90 minutes, but I think Martinelly has enough to justify going for him still.
He seems more explosive to me, Martinelli.
Yeah, he does. He definitely.
For sure. Let's move to Saka's timeline, because he's next to him on this chart. 0.5 small return, so he's converting the more difficult efforts. And I don't know whether that has any bearing on your decision to pick him or not, but very similar stats to Martinelli anyway. Let's bring up his timeline. And I mean, the first assumption that I would make is that he's much more consistent than Martinelli, but he has had the advantage of playing more minutes than him in the last 10 game weeks. But he's returned in 4 of the last 5 games that he's played, so very consistent and very comparable to Martinelli in that respect. And his stats are just very, very consistent. Like, XG is high for like most games that he's played in. I can't believe how he's flown under the radar for me. And I would be very tempted to consider Saka as a long-term asset as well. But because that he's going to play. That he's probably the more nailed out of Smith Rowe, Martinelli and Saka in general. I think right now, probably Martinelli's probably the guy in form, so he's probably going to play regardless. But I think Saka's a really, really viable option.
Yeah, my only concern with Saka is with more difficult games coming on the horizon, he's going to be the one that is asked to do the engine work around the middle of the park a lot more. So I'd imagine when we start seeing him play some of these like tougher defenses, he's not going to be getting into the same positions that he's been in before. I mean, he's not explosive, right? He's had 1 double-digit haul all season, which was against Spurs. The rest of the time, he's a bit like Rafinha, kind of gets his 6s and 7s and kind of ticks along, which is fine. He's 6.3. Don't expect, it doesn't need to be getting huge points every week. But I just think the way that Martinelli's role is in that team, which is get the ball to him, just let him drive forward, that's what makes him a better pick for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think Martinelli's probably going to get those bigger chances than Saka. I think there's more reliability on Saka's technical finishing, which he does have. But yeah, that's probably going to be unreliable in the long term.
It was a tidy goal for Saka against Leeds. The way he shifted it onto his foot and kind of keeper. He's clearly got the ability to finish and cause problems in the box. It's just how often are they going to get him into the box?
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a shot map later on which will show his average shot position. and the disparity between Saka and Martinelli. So that will become quite evident. But let's go back to the Spurs guys, because obviously they're the headline here, and I think a lot of people will look to use Son as the player that they bring in for Salah when he goes off to the African Cup of Nations. So I think Son will be quite a popular pick as a make weight for Salah, and people will have to choose that other premium option, whether they have Ronaldo, who's sitting pretty on this chart as well, whether they go Kane, whether they go Sterling, whether they go De Bruyne. I think those are the key premium options. But hardly many in midfield. Sterling is probably not going to be that heavily owned.
Sterling.
Yeah. So it's going to be...
Not convinced on that pick, Ted, not going to lie.
Oh, I don't know. His stats at the time were fantastic. Oh, goodness me. I was so disappointed when I brought him in and he was benched immediately. I can imagine. He played 5 in a row, including a midweek round, which was a midweek round. Played 90 minutes, no problem. And I was like, yes, he's going to be consistently playing. No,
it's so upsetting. Is it? You try and sort of deviate from the template a little bit and get punished like that. Yeah, I was happy when he scored. Actually, I thought, yeah, you do deserve that.
In hindsight, it was a rubbish pick at the time, but I'm just happy that he got some points, because it can go either way. When you're picking something far from the template, like Sterling or Martinelli, it can go one way or the other, and you're either a hero or a villain. And, if you continue to have a template team, 1 or 2 spots where you have these exciting picks, then you're going to go through with the rough of the smooth over the course of the season. So no harm, no foul. It is what it is. But yeah, I've got some timelines for Kane and Son, and let's just look at Kane first. We saw this massive dip from game week 9 to game week 12 in this XGI per 90 rolling average. Those are the red lines. And since then, obviously he's had 3 fixtures missing, the Burnley because of the snow, and then Brighton and Leicester because of COVID. But since game week 12, his stats have really improved game after game. That XG is coming back, that XA is coming back, and I think he probably is going to be a decent asset going forward. Now he's got his goal, because as you can see, he hasn't returned a goal or assist in his last 10 apart from at Liverpool. I think the floodgates might open for him now, and if I would probably go Son over Kane myself, but I don't see why there would be an issue if he wanted to plump for Kane. I think he looks more on it. He got his goal, but there's still a question about his clinicalness.
Yeah, I'm not sold. I'm not sold on him still. I want to see him convert. is essentially it. I mean, his numbers are increasing, but it's Harry Kane. He's going to have good numbers. He's one of the best strikers in the world, but his goals, 2 goals this season, is absolutely unbelievably bad. With all the fixtures coming, I think if we start seeing some double game weeks for Spurs, I think we might be seeing a few people doubling up on Son and Kane. And I can completely see that. But if I'm picking one, it's got to be Son for me.
Yeah, let's move to Son, because his numbers are also very good. It must have been a Spurs thing, because since game week 12, he's also accelerated that XGI per 90. And he's returned 4 times in his last 3 matches in great form. And the stats to back them up. So, I mean, watching the game, he just looked more determined. I think the nature of his goal against Liverpool was slightly fortunate, but I think he had plenty of other opportunities where he slid Dele Alli through and Dele Alli fell over or something and looked for the penalty. It would have been a Son assist, but there were plenty of opportunities that he created, and I think he's got loads and loads of roads to attacking points. So I'm excited about Son. I think he's been excellent, and you can't rival that form, right? It's almost Martinelli form.
almost. Oh, I think when Spurs set up like they did against Liverpool, Son's going to be the one that benefits. That's what we wanted to see with the 2 strikers, up the pitch. That's when Son becomes out of position. He's the one he's the fast one. He's the one they're going to be getting the balls to for him to run off on. And you've got Kane, when he's looking to create and set Son up. He was moving over to the right to kind of make these things happen. If Moura comes back into the team, then I think, that suits Kane more, because we should, in theory, start seeing Kane adopting the more kind of central roles, and maybe it's Son that moves out to the left and more on the right. So there's different options that the Spurs can be doing. I think given the fixtures are easier on paper and the defences are going to be lower, I think we're going to see more coming back into the side, which maybe means Son shifted out a bit. But I still wouldn't be going near Kane. I still think Son, even if Son does play a little bit wider than we saw against Liverpool, he's still the one for me.
It's a really good point. I think we always have this discussion about the differences between Son and Kane. Son loves space. Kane loves the balls into the box. The really close opportunities. Although he does shoot from distance occasionally, but when Son's playing against weaker defences that sit back into the box, I think he becomes a weaker player. But I mean, he played Brentford and Norwich in Gameweek 14 and 15 and still managed to get 3 returns. So I'm not quite sure that logic is there. I think maybe the strategy that Conte has imposed in Spurs maybe just adds another string to his bow. Maybe overthinking it a little bit. But certainly, whenever he's played Palace in the last 5 or 6 years he's played in the Premier League, he's always struggled. But this is Palace of old that have been defensively focused, and maybe Vieira will play in a slightly different way that might suit Son. Who knows? But let's just look at his fixtures. Palace, I think, they're going to play defensively, but they're a more attacking style. Southampton have more possession, which will suit Spurs because of the counter-attacking style that they like to play with. And then Watford. And I think Watford are defensively porous enough for Son or Kane to attack. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if he gets returns in all 3 of those games. I'm very tempted to move for him. Very tempted.
Well, Sterling to Son's surely got to be an easy move.
Yes. I just don't know whether to move back to a premium forward. Like, I think a lot of people are going to have Ronaldo, like yourself. And I'm going to get massive FOMO there as well. Arsenal and Man United. Terrible.
2 teams you wouldn't have thought 6 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Right, let's move on and talk about the shot map. We've got this. Let's move to it. And this is a graphic which shows average shot distance from goal over the last 6 game weeks. And the number of shots is underneath the player name. We see Jota with 25 shots in the last 6 game weeks, which is the most out of any single player. This is filtered for a minimum number of 12 shots. So these are the 18 players that have had more than 12 shots. And the distribution around the player is their number of shots on target in green, number of shots blocked in orange, and number of shots off target in red. So it's quite a lot to it, but we can see your man Martinelli right at the top there with an average shot distance of less than 12 yards, which I guess from watching him in the last 2 games doesn't surprise you that much.
No, I mean that's what he's been asked to do. He's been asked to get into the box and shoot from close distance. That's he's not going to be like a Smith Rowe who relies on goals from outside of the box. He's going to be someone who drives in and tries to get shots away as close to the goal as possible, which is great. Just for 5 point, you've got a 5.2 midfielder. Could even be playing out of position at some point. At the top of this chart, you've got to kind of take note.
What does surprise me is that he has scored every single shot on target that he's had. So you can see that little green space. There's a little white border around it, which shows the number of goals he scored. There's no other shot on target. He scored every single shot on target. Does that encourage you or does that worry you?
Well, a bit of both. I mean, it encourages me in the sense that it shows a kind of a clinical side. There's obviously going to be drop off to that. No player's going to score every shot that they take, but he doesn't need to. This is the thing. He doesn't need. He doesn't need to. He needs to get. If he gets you a goal every other game for 5-2, you're going to be absolutely laughing at that. You take that in any day. So, this is encouraging. I want my players to be shooting as close to the goal as possible. That's where they're most 100%. Likely to get goals. So the fact he's right up there at the top of that, the fact he's showing a clinical side to him, is great, and you can't really be too negative about it when he's scoring every shot that he takes. So I'll just take it for now.
100%. I mean, form is form. At the end of the day, gives him confidence. No reason why he won't convert those in the future. But yeah, comparing him to the likes of Saka, who's in the 3rd tier down, shooting between 14 and 16 yards. Clearly, that average shot distance is much further away, and Saka's going to rely on more of a a wonder goal than maybe Martinelli is. So yeah, more encouraging for Martinelli, and the fact that he's like 1 million cheaper is just even more encouragement. If you do want to invest in the Arsenal attack, Martinelli does seem the way to go. Just switching off Arsenal, looking at Jota next to him, 25 shots, and half of them have been off target. And
clinical, you said to me earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not clinical. He's never going to be a clinical player, but it doesn't matter. Like in the same way that you want your players to be, having shots on target and stuff, you also just want your players to be having shots. And if you've got a player having shots near the goal, like Jota's doing, he's going to get returns.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, just to elaborate on this, it says within 12 yards, the average shot distance, but he's actually far and ahead, the closest out of any of these players. His average shot distance is about 9 yards at the penalty spot. And no one even comes close. I think Martinelli and Pukki are about 11 and a half yards, something like that. Which, as an average, is huge, and just emphasises Jota's importance to that Liverpool side to have this sort of target man. It seems weird labelling him as a target man, but incredible. We've elaborated about Jota quite a lot about this stream, but
and everyone's got him anyway. So
everyone's got him ready. But yeah, a lot of other people to talk about. Mason Mount has had a resurgence of late. He scored in his he scored in his previous 3 games. He blanked at the weekend against Wolves. Wolves held Chelsea to a frustrating 0-0, but that just shows how solid they can be. But what do you make of Mount? Could he be another option in that midfield?
Yeah, I love Mount. I think Mount's great. And, Chelsea attack is so hard to tap into because, Ziyech, Pulisic, Werner, Havertz, Lukaku, you never really know who's going to start. And, I think Lukaku's going to come in at some point. You've got to think he will at 100 million that they paid for him. But even when he plays, it's still question marks whether is he just there to bring in other midfielders into the team and maybe not get all the goals himself. Whereas Mount is the consistent one. He takes a lot of the corners, a lot of the free kicks. He's showing more of a ruthless edge, in terms of getting goals. We've seen some big hauls from him, which we haven't seen from him in kind of previous seasons. And he's almost the first name on the team sheet at the moment. So I love him. I think he's a great pick at 7.5 or 7.6 or whatever he is. He can write. No players are essential. I don't think. I think Jota is sort of fairly close. I don't think you go for Mount over Jota, but you could easily go for Mount over someone like Silva or Foden. I think they're going to be similarly matched.
I think it's crazy how the striker in this Tuchel formation really hasn't excelled. I know Lukaku has been out injured, but it certainly seems to be the men around him, around that number 9, that have benefited the most. And Mount is an example of that. The wing backs are an example of that. Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi, Werner. Well, I'm not massively exuberant about any of them. So Mount seems like the obvious option if you do want to go for another Chelsea outfielder. But I don't think this is the time to start bringing a Chelsea player in when you're probably going to be moving away in the next couple of game weeks when the difficult fixtures come around and the blank game weeks come around. So yeah, it might be a little bit of a red herring at the moment. But talking about red herrings, we've got Roberts from Leeds at the bottom here, propping up the table. 16 shots, which is pretty insane. Not a viable FPL option, though. But plenty of shots on target, has to be said.
Yeah, surprising. I mean, for a player to be taking that many shots, from that range and for them to be getting on target, especially someone of, I don't think, Premiership quality as well in him. But yeah, there's 100 other players I'd rather have than Tyler Roberts.
100%. I mean, even you can compare him to the likes of Tielemans or Maddison or anyone who sort of shoots from a million miles away. Rafinha's there next to him on this chart. You need to have superior technical ability to consistently be able to convert those efforts. And Rafinha has sort of showed in the earlier parts of this season that he can do it. But I think most of his goals recently have come through penalties. And his stats have fallen away other than that, really. Nice to see.
I can't remember the last time he scored an open play goal.
Yeah.
He scored a free kick. That was his kind of last goal before the penalties started. He's had an assist. But yeah, at the moment, he's reliant on the set pieces.
I mean, the fixture difficulty has been tough. It has to be said. So he's going to get less opportunities to dribble his way in. Though he did get a really decent one at the weekend. He fluffed it. which is very unlike Rafinha. But yeah, definitely, I think he might be the one I go to from Salah to maybe upgrade a striker position, like Salah to Rafinha, and then maybe, I don't know, King or Broha up to, I don't know, Ronaldo or something. This is for game week 21 or game week 22, for example. But yeah, I think he's sensational. I can't believe how consistent he's been this season.
No, nor can I. I didn't think he had that in him.
No, absolutely fantastic. But I mean, his team has needed him, and he's upped his game to maybe compensate for that. So fair play to him. It's nice to see Cancelo on this. Obviously, 18-point hero at the weekend, but next to Rafinha. We always know this was his first goal of the season, and that may surprise some people because he does shoot a lot, but it's all massively outside the area. It's all wonder goal-esque, and it was a wonder goal, unsurprisingly. So he does get a game every single season where he gets a goal, an assist, and a clean sheet. He got it last season, got one last season, and if you own him, absolutely fantastic, but it seems like you're just, it's going to pass you by if you don't own him.
That's it now. He's got his one big goal. He won't get another one. That's just what he does.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, certainly for the assists and for the clean sheets, Cancelo seems absolutely fantastic value. And it was a good decision to keep him after that suspension. Let's just say that. Is anyone else on this chart scream out to you as another viable option? Is Bowen there? Maddison, was he a trap or was he a genuinely good option? I'm yet to really figure that out.
He's not a trap. I don't think, Maddison. I think he is a good option. I think he's becoming. It looks like he's becoming more central now to Rodgers' system. It looks like Rodgers is finally starting to get some idea of the kind of structure and squad that he wants with that side. And we're now seeing Maddison consistently being involved in attacks at the other end of the pitch, rather than just playing in this kind of deeper role. He's bursting forward more. He's setting players up in the penalty area. He's having more shots, as you can see from this chart. So he's definitely an option for me. And he's significantly cheaper than like Vardy. And then who else is there in that Leicester side? You're looking at Iheanacho, not an option. Daka, not with Vardy there. Barnes still not really playing regularly. So if you want to tap into Leicester, Maddison's the way to go.
Leicester are too erratic for me. I just don't know what result I'm going to get. They could lose 5-0. They could win 5-0. I really just don't know what's going to happen.
You need them to go on a good run, and they've just had it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They had Watford, Southampton, Villa, Newcastle. That was the kind of run to get on him. And if you did, I mean, you got 3 double-digit hauls from Maddison in that time.
Yeah.
16 against Watford, 10 against Southampton, and 16 against Newcastle. But next games are Man City, Liverpool, and it's Norwich and Burnley away. Okay, Norwich, but then we've talked about Norwich being better defensively anyway. Burnley away is a good match, but it's like Brighton, Liverpool, West Ham, Wolves, Chelsea. There's not a good period to bring him in. So, but I love Maddison. I think it's probably a bit late.
I can draw so many comparisons to the Martinelli dilemma that we have now, because before Leicester played Newcastle, I was going to bring in Maddison. I had exact funds, and instead I brought in Jarrod Bowen. If I had done, obviously he would have hauled and I'd be very happy. But the problem was that after Newcastle, his fixtures turned and he had a set of difficult ones, like Martinelli will have. And it's like that dilemma of bringing in for one good fixture just because you think he might haul. And I mean, most of the time they tend to do. But then you kind of have to use this other transfer to transfer them out again. And I'm not sure it's worth it. So where do you stand on that?
Well, the difference between Maddison and Martinelli is Maddison's competing with Rafinha and Bowen, I'd say, in that kind of 6, 5, 7 million spot. And I think both Bowen and Rafinha are better picks than him with the fixtures going. But Martinelli's not competing with anyone. At 5'2", he's in the kind of a league of his own. It might be like Smith. I mean, you're looking at like Damari Gray, Smith Rowe, these guys in which he's leagues above those. So it's a kind of a bit of a slightly different dilemma. I've in terms of your question about the hokey cokey and switching players in and out, just don't do it. Like I've done it this season. Again, I had Mopé in on my wild card, and was going to take him out next week, and then I got an injury and couldn't, and ended up keeping him for like 3 weeks. I've done hokey cokeys with Kane, Ronaldo, Vardy. I've missed the points of all of them sort of going forward. You've got to have some element of patience, and especially at the moment, you've got to be able to react to things. And burning transfers, getting players in and out just isn't sensible.
100%. I mean, this is why captaincy is so difficult to call, because it's a one game week choice. And if you're just bringing in a player for one game week, you have that volatility. You just don't know what's going to happen. Whereas FPL managers consistently do well if they bring in a prized asset for a medium term period, and you just know that they're going to perform above the average, and that's all you need. And I completely agree with you, Az, but it's very frustrating when you do miss out on those hauls when you have thought about bringing that player in. It's what it is. So talking about our teams, let's end the video by talking about your transfer plans for game week 19. You sent me your bus team, and it's a 3-5-2 with Ramsdale in goal, away to Norwich. Alexander-Arnold, James and Cancelo, a very popular triple up in defence. Salah captain, Jota, Foden, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and Ronaldo and Jimenez up front. So talk us through it. And are you going to make any transfers this week?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm pretty well set up this week. I've got King on the bench. Difficult game against Wolves, but he can come in kind of if I need him to. Smith Rowe, Martinelli is probably a problem I'm going to have to address, but not this week with Norwich. I feel like I've got a couple of differentials now in Ronaldo and Jimenez. I think a lot of people have jumped off Ronaldo, and I'm hoping that a lot of people have jumped off Ronaldo and not given themselves scope to really bring him back in, because maybe they've used those funds to bring in, other players and things. So I think we might see Ronaldo at kind of like, 35-40% like EO, effective ownership. Whereas if it had been, if we hadn't had these postponements, I think it would have been 70-80% because of the fixtures they've kind of had. And Jimenez against Watford as well kind of gives me someone a bit different too. And then I don't think many people are going to have the double up with Arsenal of Smith Rowe and Martinelli. So the dream scenario is both Smith Rowe and Martinelli play, which I think is probably quite unlikely. I think we're going to see one of them drop out. And like I said, if one of them does drop out, then I'd rather it be Smith Rowe because Martinelli's lower ownership and I think more likely to be involved. And I'm pretty happy this week. Pretty happy.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic team. It's like there's a lot of dark blue in the fixture difficulty, which is good. Always good, 100%. That Leicester at home, I think, is a bit of a dark horse as well because we saw from the defensive chart that they're particularly leaky. I think the Man City boys can probably get a convincing result there as well. So, yeah, I think your team's really shaped up very, very well. I'm very jealous of the Arsenal presence, as we've sort of talked about in this video. And Jimenez against Watford, another big differential. So you never know.
Here we go. 1-0 Wolves incoming, and it probably won't be Jimenez involved, but we can hope.
You just know that he's going to get that 3 bonus when he does score, though, because,
a lovely little 9-pointer from Jimenez would be pretty tasty.
That's what he does. Let's hope Foden recovers from his naughty step antics to return to your team as well. But yes, really good. And nice to save the transfer for game week 20. 2 free transfers at this time of the year is going to be invaluable. So yeah, pretty jealous of your side. But let's move on to mine. And I've got this 4-5-1 with a pretty decent midfield, pretty lacking up front with Watkins and Broha on the bench. Watkins is playing Chelsea, so still haven't made up my mind whether I'll play him or not. I think Chelsea's a pretty difficult fixture to get a return in that. So I'm playing King ahead of him against Wolves away, and I'm not 100% sure whether that's the optimal move, but I think it probably is the easier fixture on paper. But yeah, Bowen there against Southampton at home. We saw their defensive prowess weaken over the last few weeks. So hopeful that Bowen might get some faithful returns there. And I think probably my move will be Sterling to Son this week. Preempt. I think that probably is the most viable move. Although I am conscious that I do have a lot of funds in midfield. And if any forwards come, out of the woodwork to form some sort of new template, I will be very, very restricted in moving to them, I should say. So I don't know. I'm not sure that's anything to worry about in the near future, but I think the team's looking okay at the moment.
Yeah, I think Sterling to Son makes sense. I think it's interesting you've gone for King over Watkins and Broja. I think that is a real coin flip between those three. We talked about Wolves being so good defensively, King being moved over out wide a bit. I mean, he has got penalties, but you've got to think Watkins has been in good form lately. Broja, second sub. I don't know. I think West Ham are probably the most likely to concede out of Chelsea and Wolves.
Really difficult dilemma because the best striker out of the three has the worst fixture, and then conversely, so it's difficult. Maybe I'll just dwell over that until the deadline and just probably play Watkins.
I think I'd probably play Broja, but there's not much in it.
You probably play Broja, really?
I think so. Yeah, over King. I think Wolves away is so tough.
You've
got double Chelsea defence, so you can't really play Watkins against them. So kind of by default, I think I'll go Broja. But
this is the problem with a good squad depth is you have these annoying situations where you have to pick the best starting player, and there's no guarantee that.
And there's nothing in it, and one of them will get 12 points, the others will get 1, and you'll bench for 12. It's guaranteed. It always happens.
So annoying. Oh well, but yeah, I mean the future plan I think probably will be to move Alonso down to maybe Reguilon or someone like that, and eventually James on for someone else, which doesn't make. Well, it doesn't fill me with too much confidence because it's 4 games that you would transfer him out for and then you'd want him back. So I'm not 100% sure whether it's worth it or not. We will have to see what the squad looks like in the future, but I think those are the long-term plans. I think it looks okay. Salah captain nailed on for you, Az?
I mean, yeah.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
I just can't see any way in which Salah doesn't get something if he plays against Leeds, because Leeds are going to come at Liverpool. I mean, 7-0 was bad enough against City. It could be even worse against Liverpool if Liverpool turn up in that game. No, they could get 8 or 9, and it wouldn't surprise me.
I need some way of catching up to you because you're number 1 in mods and cons, and what is it? I'm 35 points behind you.
You're not too far off.
35 is quite a lot. I need some sort of differentials to catch up with you.
I think Son's a good one.
Son would be a good one, but it'd be Son versus Ronaldo, and they probably end up scoring the same amount. Regardless, you're just paying a little bit more for Ronaldo. Who knows?
Martinelli will see me through, Ted. You can't compete.
I'm so jealous of Martinelli owners. Really am. Anyway, yes, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me, Az. Thank you for everyone joining in the chat. And hopefully this has helped with your Game Week 19 decisions. We've got a little bit of time this week, 5 or 6 days before the game week starts, which just feels really weird, doesn't it?
I know.
So many game weeks.
Nice to chill and sort of, the games are going to go ahead, and we just have to keep our eye on what's happening with the news and, coming from the camps, because you've got to hope that some of the teams that have had COVID issues have got a lid on it now, and, hopefully by the weekend we'll see all the games go ahead, but you never know. There could easily be some more postponements.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But yes, we'll end it there. Thank you all for joining us again, and best of luck for Game Week 19. Bye.
See you soon.